All right, guys and girls, welcome to the first Elite Strength podcast. My name is Aaron. Yes, I have a name. It's not just Elite Strength Coach from Elite Strength. And on this podcast, first and foremost, I have big boy Ben Mayfield from Matter Athletica, not Athletic, Athletica. So make sure we get that right. He's going to have a little chat about himself, his sexy mustache, and really just about what he's doing in his life at the moment.
Nutrition, lifestyle, and PED education. This is the Elite Strength Podcast with Aaron Scoffey.
So, Benny boy, how are you?
Good, mate. How you doing?
Good, man. Good. So, even though we were sort of chatting before we started this whole official recording thing about some shit and about your little ebook that you sent me that I get to read. Am I allowed to talk about that yet, or am I allowed to?
Yeah, go nuts.
Yeah. I probably should have checked beforehand, but too late. Anyway, that little stress ebook that you sent me, it's a very, very nice read. So, anyway, Ben, tell me about you. Well, tell the people about you. I know everything about you, so that's all good in the hood. Who are you? What do you do? What are you about, my friend?
Well, to keep it nice and simple, I guess, to sort of get the ball rolling, I guess you could say, firstly, I'm a psychology student, so I study behavioral science. That's my field. That's what I'm, I guess, looking to expertise in. I wouldn't say an expert yet by any means of the feat. But it is definitely a large, I guess, collective of my life and what I want to do and what I am doing. Prior to that, I'm also an IFBB open bodybuilder. So that's another, I guess, intertwined niche that I like to sit in and I enjoy and very passionate about, as you would know. So going into probably my third year of competitively living the bodybuilding lifestyle. But also prior to that, I guess, like I've always been an athlete. I've always been someone pretty athletically driven and competitive in nature. I spent 20 years playing rugby league. And that sort of led me down a pretty intense path in life in terms of chasing goals and outcomes and performance, skills, merit, all that sort of thing, which I think sort of probably led me down the route of, I guess you could say it fed into wanting to understand people the way I do with Matter Athletica. So it's kind of like my whole life is kind of just, I guess, mingled together to kind of land here and get to where I am now, which is passionately trying to understand great people and how we can foster more people to become great themselves and try and increase, I guess, the perspective or perception of potential that we all have and how we can improve that. So that's really where Matter Athletica really steps in now for me, and what my future will probably hold and will be a part of is trying to get people to see how much more they have to offer, how much more they can do, and remove a lot of the limitations we put on ourselves.
I like it. So before we break into like a whole stack of different roads that you just sort of put up there, how do you find your bodybuilding influence on your current degree or field of study? Would you say that your field of study was influenced by your bodybuilding? Would your bodybuilding be influenced by your study area, or would you say it's a bit of both, or completely neither?
I would say it's more of a bilateral relationship, in the sense that there's probably an outline factor as well that led to it. So always been competitively driven. I guess to really regress back and get to how I even got to bodybuilding and really get into that sort of thought process was when I had my car accident about 2012, completely destroying my lower back and my back in general, really. As a 21-year-old, I was pretty much told I'd not do the work I was doing again. I wouldn't be, my footy career was over, all that sort of thing. So, that damage and that sort of thing really kind of forced me to realign my identity and figure out what I wanted to do next and what it actually was that I was passionate about, that, or what can I still do? And that's where it clicked that it was always gym. It was always some sort of exercise and activity and training. Before bodybuilding, I was performance driven, more so like getting my powers up, getting my cleans in, getting my squats right, deadlifts, little bit of show muscles and stuff, but as a small halfback, I had to get more power, I had to get more strength and more size. So that was more so my goal that way. And when that was taken from me, it kind of forced me to realign with what it was I wanted to do and who I was and where my passion lied and that sort of thing. And that really got me into my coaching, my personal training, that sort of thing, doing those courses. And then that, I guess, fostered in that environment where I'm just like, I'm around gym 24/7. I love training. I love nutrition. I love learning about food. I love wanting to get bigger. I've got an obsessive knack to just want to be bigger and tighter and leaner and look better and look a certain way. And that sort of, I guess, festered into the bodybuilding side of things. But it wasn't just that vanity drive for it, I guess. I guess there's some people that just sort of simply do it for the show of it all and kind of that stage 5 minutes of photo shoots and it's all worth it and that sort of thing. Whereas for me, it fed into that psychology of things as well, where I wanted to push and see how much my mind could take before it snapped, how much my body could take before it snapped, where the actual limit is, and is that limit from me or actually there? And that's where I think the psychology sort of came into it. My philosophy started to really expand, I guess, and what I believed my philosophies were, my values and interests. And then from that, it got to a point where I was so obsessed with it. I was like, surely I'm not the only one who thinks this way. Surely I'm not the only one that has these ideas and these beliefs. And that's when I started the Instagram page and started interviewing athletes and talking to people like yourself and Dempsey, Shane Little, and that sort of thing, where we had similar either context, conversations, upbringings or similar characteristics. And I was like, okay, cool. There's more here than what people think. And then, feeding into that was expanding on my psychology degree, getting into the classes and courses and stuff, and then really sort of getting a better understanding of the brain, the mind, consciousness, perception, why we think the way we think, and why these crazy elite people get to do the things they do and other people don't.
Yeah, man. So basically, everything that you're sort of doing now came from that initial trauma or that initial situation of that car accident. And sort of from there, everything is stemmed off in terms of wanting to go into something else that you can sort of prosper in and, enjoy and have fun with in terms of your bodybuilding. But then at what point did that turn you down the psychology route and going to school and learning about psych? Because obviously most people go to, uni fresh out of high school. They have no idea what they're doing or what they want to do. And it probably takes them mid to late 20s before they're like, oh shit, I probably should have done something else. Right. So it's like from your early 20s to, let's say, your mid to late 20s, like what changed for you from a psychology standpoint for you to want to then go and learn psychology?
I guess the irony is, and it came up on my Facebook not too long ago, was in 2010, I actually shared a post on Facebook. The only reason I would ever go to university was for sports psychology, which is
already ingrained a little bit there.
It was already it's already there. Like whilst I don't think it was as present as, I guess it would be more subconscious, but it wasn't as sort of at the forefront as what it is now. I was always obsessed with Andrew Johns, Jordan, Jonathan Thurston's. Like I was always obsessed with those. I think I fell more in love with the people that were doing excellent things than the game itself. Yeah. Like infatuated by Arnie, infatuated by Ronnie, infatuated by Dorian. Other sports, like even sports I wasn't even interested in, I would still be infatuated by someone that could do something so extreme and not lose or not get hurt or not die and win. And that was to me like, well, it's not physiological because physiologically they should be dead. Why aren't they dead? It's not nutritional because half these guys are depleted of food or don't even care about nutrition. So what is this thing that they're doing that's like getting past that point? And I don't think at the time I had the skills or the knack to explore it. I was saying to some guys earlier today, it was kind of like my identity back then was the halfback, the footy player, the tradie. That's what I have to do. That's what my family life was. That's what my family history is. That's what all the guys around me were. So it wasn't really like I was in an environment where being intellectual and being like philosophical and exploring conscious thoughts and that sort of thing was allowed. And getting that accident forced me out of that environment and made me look introspectively as opposed to externally. And I think that's like those underlying thoughts are always there. It was just that I was never in a place where I could foster it and sort of encourage it. Not that that's bad. Like, I loved playing footy. It was 20 years of my life that I gave everything to it. It was great. I have no regrets about it. The only regrets I have are things like, I should have played harder or done this or that, same most people have around sport. But yeah, when it came to now moving on from that, it was like I finally got into a position where I could encourage my own thoughts a little bit more and be a bit more reclusive in myself and sort of be the more introvert that I am and explore what I was thinking and feeling and understanding and wanting to learn more and ask more questions. And that sort of led me down more. I'm getting more questions than I am answers, but I want the answers, but I want to get the answers for other people as well. So what does that mean? And then, after talking with Dalton doing his sort of minors in psychology and some of his electives in psychology, he's like, I think you should do this. And I was like, looked into it and I was like, it completely aligns with what I said when I was 18 and 25. Here we are. It's just gone full circle. And now I'm heading into 3 years in and the more I get into it, the more fascinated I become, the more aggressively obsessive I get about it. Not only for my own self, my own training and my own sort of outcomes, but for what the plan is for Matter down the track. So yeah, it's been a weird journey and a weird sort of stepping stone to get there. And I wish there wasn't a necessity of depression and trauma and stuff to do it, but hey, it's where I am and that's life, I guess.
I guess you make the best of with what you got, right?
Exactly.
So would you say, I guess it's probably too much of a general comment, but there's some level of maturity required to probably study psychology? So it's like most, I guess, conventional degrees, I guess we'll call them, are studied pretty early on, late teens, early 20s. Do you think it's easier, or you appreciate it more, or you're going to understand it more if you start studying that a little bit older? Because obviously not many, I guess that's not true, there are quite a few people, but it's not as common to be like mid, late 20s or even older and going back to uni, because I can imagine that can be intimidating in itself. So, walking around with all these 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds trying to study the same thing, and you're just sort of sitting there the jacked uncle in the corner, what up? with your bumstead mustache on, just being you have no idea what's going on. But would you say that there's some level of maturity that gives you that benefit into studying psychology now?
Yeah, I think it gives you a bit more appreciation and perspective. When you've got a full-time job and you've got other things going on, it's like you don't have that availability of wasting time, or you don't have that allowance of taking it easy. So you actually have to take in the information. You actually have to take the time to understand it. And when you've had a lot of personal anecdotal experiences in sort of traumatic behavior or family matters or relationship problems, you have first world experience to apply that knowledge to. And whether or not that's the same for everyone, I know, but I sort of got that. I got that out of my life experiences leading up to going to uni, dealing with things in certain ways. I first discovered positive psychology and reframing psychological behavior through dad passing away, not so much through going to school. So that festered my interest into I was curious why I was so weird, why I didn't grieve in the way everyone else did. And why wasn't I depressed and emotional and breaking down, crying every other week like some of my family could have been, or other people have when loved ones pass away. And so that sort of gave me the knack to, when I got to school, was I want to understand it. I'm not just here to pass time. I'm not just here because mum and dad said this is the right thing to do. Dad always said to me, get a trade first. And so when I couldn't do my trade, I was like, well, this is actually what I want to do. And yeah, I think that was definitely an appreciation of that maturity side of things, getting that little bit older, a bit more life behind me, where I can go to uni and be like, all right, I'm actually here. It's a choice, but it's my choice. I'm here for the right reasons. I'm here to really take it all in. And I think a lot of the times, fresh out of high school, especially people I knew, it was more so I'm at uni, but also I'm here to party and
it's more of a social thing.
Exactly. It's a very expensive 4-year holiday.
Yeah, that's totally fair.
And I've found I speak to people and it's they're like, oh, what do you want to do with psychology after you get out? Are you just doing the 3-year undergrad? And I'm like, nah, this is my plans. I'm already here. I'm already executing on them now. So when I finish, I'm ready to go. not here to sort of make my mind up and live as I go onto it. This is what I'm doing, and I don't give a shit what anyone else says, or if anyone says it's worth it, or if it's going to work or what. But yeah, for me, it was like having that already established, and what my mindset was about the outcome is definitely gave him. I don't say an advantage because there are grades I suck at, but it's made me appreciate a lot more and sort of get deeper involved and really trying to take in the information and actually trying to learn, not just pass time.
Yeah, you're actually there with the intent of like learning and progressing more so than just being there for the sake of being there and getting a pass.
Exactly. Like the mindset around Fours Open Doors kills me. Like when you're coming out of degrees where you're going to be helping people, or you're like, in charge of medicines or sciences, and people are saying Fours Open Doors, is like, do you want to just pass that? Like, to me, I go into every class trying to get a 7. And if I get a 5 or a 4 or a 6, I want to know why and how I can get that 7. But for some people, they're just like, Fours Open Doors. I'm like, power to you, but we're not going to deal with people's heads. I'm going to deal with people's lives. I'm going to deal with people's like outcomes. I want to be more than just a 4.
Yeah, for sure. You want to be the best of the best. I mean, why not?
Exactly.
So you mentioned that you're going to be, obviously, you've got your plan in place, and whether you get there or you don't. Now, let's talk about some of these plans, shall we? So let's look at sort of the bodybuilding stuff first and foremost, because then we'll get into the Matter Athletica and where you're going to go with that and how that came about. But in terms of your bodybuilding, so you said 3 years or so you've been training and living the bodybuilding lifestyle, or just living that bodybuilding lifestyle for the last 3 years? Because I imagine you've been training well before then, right?
Yeah. So I've definitely been training long before then. Like there was attempts at competing previously in like natural federations and stuff like that, but due to injuries and rehab, it didn't really pan out. Relationships came and went that I sort of lost myself to, which I regret, but also appreciate, because I found myself as well as lost myself in it. It kind of takes that appreciation of losing something before you realize how badly you want it. And so, there was a few periods where I definitely gave up on what I wanted to be someone else that I wasn't. And that sort of reaffirmed how badly I love training, how bad I love this lifestyle and doing it. The 3-year comment was more so 3 to 4 years under direct tutelage of like Dalton and really giving it 100% effort. Like life is about training, eating, sleeping, studying. To me, I don't do much else. That doesn't guarantee that I'm successful or anything. Doesn't mean that I'm amazing at it, but I put every foot forward that I can to get the results I want. And so, yeah, it's probably been the last 3 years where I've really excelled. My physique coming out of my first show was interesting. It was my first real progressive bulk phase that was under controlled advice and sort of a smart head, I guess. And we've really put on size and stuff that I wanted, at least to the point to get to the next stage. So, I was 81 kilos on stage last time. I'm looking to be about 95 to 97 this time. So still a fair bit of growing left to do before we start prep, hopefully in the right places. So, it's not just about adding mass to us. Like I always said to Dalton, I don't just want to get bulky and big just for the sake of it. I want big in the right places. So
I'll ask you a question, only because, if anyone actually does listen to this podcast, let's be real. Dalton was actually one of my first coaches that I ever had. So when I was powerlifting back in the day. Now, Dalton's a very good friend of mine. So when I ask this question, it's definitely no offense to Dalton, because Dalton's probably one of maybe 5 of the smartest people I know in Australia, if not, one of 10 to 12 in the world that I actually highly rate. So Dalton, like, I love you, and this is no offense to you. Do you ever get comments, questions about you being coached by someone that's never competed?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Yeah. Okay. So again, I know Dalton, like, so it's like, yeah. I know that what he's capable of, and I have no doubt that he's like the best person for the job for you. There's no question, like, at all. But how do you answer that question when people that don't know Dalton, come to you and say, hey, like, if you had your choice between like Dalton and Dorian Yates, which, you could pretty much apply to be coached by, like, why Dalton? Like, why a coach that hasn't done that before, like hasn't been through that process before, if that makes sense?
Well, the simplest way is usually in like a 3-sentence explanation. I'll just say, was Usain Bolt's coach the world's fastest man before Usain Bolt? And if the answer is no, well, then there's your answer.
Totally
The tangible response that someone has to be the thing they're coaching in is redundant we've seen in a multitude of sports. Like I've seen top tier elite status NRL players go into coaching, they suck because they don't have the methodology, they don't have the autonomous environments, they don't have the understanding of people behavior, not even just physiology, but psychology of manipulating and handling people, but also the expertise. Like when you think about someone who's coached or been playing halfback for 25 years, I know firsthand, I played halfback and hooker for 20 odd years. Yes, you need to know everyone else's positions, but how you coach a halfback and how you get the best out of a halfback is very different to how you get the best out of a front row or a winger or a fullback, and how you get them all to gel as a team. Your job as halfback is to be on the field commanding orders. Like that's it. Your job is to bark orders, tell people where you want them to be, look down the field, see where you want the play to end up. You don't need to be coaching. You need to be instructing and directing. You're the director of the play. That's your job. So for me, I've seen halfbacks go to coaching, and they're good at coaching other halfbacks, terrible at coaching a team. So you might get, Dorian might be successful at coaching other Dorian-like personalities. Mm-hmm. And, I see that a lot when we see, very, very stringent, monotonous, routine coaches. They might share the results of 3 or 4 of their best athletes, but that's because they're identical to them. But if you've got 100 clients starting out and you've only got 10 clients who make prep and finish the show and actually get there, it's only 10% complete rate. Like they don't show you those numbers. Yep. But when it comes to Dalton, he understands the perception of he can't put himself in the shoes of I've dieted down to 3%, 4% body fat. Fair enough. Great. He doesn't need to. He understands that the physiological adaptations, he understands the psychological adaptations. He understands to be empathetic and understand that life's going to happen. Understands that, he understands more nutritional science and behavioral science than anyone I've met. And in a way that he can articulate and get it across, not in an arrogant way, but in a way that's understandable. Like to me, and I've probably said it to you 100 times too, Einstein's always said, Einstein said, if you can't explain something to an 8-year-old, you don't understand it.
Yeah, it's my favorite quote.
to Dalton, he could explain this shit to a 3-year-old.
Yeah. And
to me, that's the difference between those sorts of coaches is great, you can go train. I would probably get trained by Dorian, hands down, no question. I would let him punish me. Yeah, but to be coached by Dorian,
fair enough.
Probably not. And that's not for someone to come on and attack this episode later on or something. I love Dorian. I love Dorian's gritty intensity. I love his peak sets and that sort of thing where he only counts one heavy working set and pyramid up. But we've moved past that. That's great intensity block. That's a great intensity session. But me and Dalton have 5-10-year plans already. And that's going to change. I don't believe in setting 10-year programs, but to have a plan in place for the next 5 years that we're executing almost to the T. At the start of each block, we write down these goals, we write these things out, and they happen. And you're like, that's fucking, we watched this happen. Yep. It's who else is doing that? Who else is looking so far down the track as well as right now?
Yep.
And that's where I think the results have come from for me is I can't give 100% every single session. I think I've written this a few times in a few different posts. If I only have the ability to give 80%, I'll give 100% of that 80%.
80%, yeah, for sure. You'll go as high as you can while you can.
Exactly. And so, an example of this is exam block last week. I was horrible. I had a sinus infection. I was lack of sleep. I was consistently just focusing on study and my exams. I was stressing. My appetite was gone. He saw that, noticed that, and rather than being shut the hell up, get all these meals and you have to do this, we tailored in a deload. We tailored in some rest. It was more so just get the calories in you can eat, and we'll look at improving, the next few weeks after that and come out of the block better. And that way I was still maintaining as much muscle mass as possible. We weren't going backwards. My lifts were still there, but it wasn't this is what the program says, you have to do it, otherwise you're a failure. It was right, this goalpost is here, the hurdle's in the way. How can we move the hurdle or get over the hurdle and get closer to the goalpost? And so that to me is the huge difference between a coach and a dictator.
Yep.
And that's why I'll always choose Dalton.
And with with Dalton being, not less experienced, because he's not less experienced with bodybuilding. He's obviously coached a couple of bodybuilders, both male and female. How much input, do you have with your training, let's say your posing stuff? Because I know your posing is probably going to be a lot more advanced than Dalton's, for example. So like I imagine he's the eye that, you know, sees the shape and can see what needs to be sort of worked on and where and when and that sort of 100%. Stuff. But I guess how much input do you have with your own training and your own plans, your own nutrition? Because it's not like you're dumb, like you're quite versed in, you know, nutrition in terms of training and in terms of supplements. So it's like, what's that balance like?
I let him take the reins, but at the same time, it's, I would say, like a partnership in conversation. You know, when I go through periods and I'll say, you know, especially coming out of this tendinopathy, you know, I'm identifying exercises that aren't flaring my knees or causing inflammation. It's like, all right, so in the next block, because I want, you know, if I'm getting this responsive growth from low stimulus and low weight, I've got some exercise I've found without pain, without instigating problems that we can execute, that I can start to load up. So he's going to take that and go, right, that's going to the program next. So it's a mixture of like me identifying places I want to improve and the things that I think will better my shape, and him having the know-how and the knowledge to tailor that in and fit that in a sort of mutual discussion, rather than just being like, all right, let's jack up your waist, let's jack up your chest, let's jack up. Do I need more chest or do I need more rounder shoulders? Do I need more arms or do I need a thicker back? Like, we have that conversation all the time as each phase progresses. We have an outline, and then it's like, all right, you know, I got to the end of the block last time. It's like, all right, where do you still feel you want to focus? And it's my legs. It's going to be my legs for a long time. It's going to be my legs. Yeah, they're coming up, but I want disgustingly dominant legs to match the rest of my upper body.
Nick Walker legs.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, that's where our next program will go. And I think he knows that as well. Like, in his head, he's like, yeah, I'd probably say that, but it's including me in the conversation. So when it gets to like week 6, I'm like, fuck, I'm bored. He's like, no, you chose it. We chose it for a reason. Get it done. And so that way it's like,
I guess my next question would be then in terms of like exercise selection and that sort of stuff. Obviously, you do have some injuries, and Dalton's obviously well versed with rehabilitation and stuff like that as well. What's your, I guess, input in terms of exercise selection? So it's like, you know what muscles now you need to build, and like I imagine he puts the plan together. Does he give you like variety in exercise selection? Does he sort of just give you the movement pattern and you say, okay, cool, I'll pick the exercise based on the gym that I'm in? Because I know you train at, well, you were training at one gym, but then sometimes you train at a different one, depending on, I guess, your schedule. Like, is it, you know, movement pattern based and then you pick the exercise? Is it, you just have the set exercise it gives you and that's just what you do, no questions asked? Like, what is it in that aspect?
No, so sort of a bit of the set of the two. So we'll look at exercise selection in terms of like, all right, what's the key for me is stimulus versus fatigue versus pain. So with my lower back and now the knee is coming along. It's not going to be a chronic injury. It's how much stimulus I get in from the exercise, how quickly does it fatigue me, and then how much does it flare up my back. So I like to push the cuff in like how close can I get to my back breaking again before I have to sort of like taper back, because the more intensity I can push, the greater load I can push, obviously the better stimulus, but I am restrained to that inflammation, that response, that pain. And there have been weeks where it's like, all right, I push a little bit too far, but we can track that. I can see that and go, all right, 25 working sets, a bit too much for this muscle. And so we'll tailor the total set volume and we'll look at that and go, all right, this block I want to focus, you know, Dalton will say, you know, I want to focus 25 to 30 working sets on your quads. These are the main exercises I'm thinking. What does the gym have? What do you think? How does this pain feel when you're doing RDLs, when you're doing B-stance RDLs, when you're doing trap bar deadlifts? How much back gets involved in that? Is that your form or is it your pain? And from there, we can see how it affects the rest of my program. So is doing heavy deadlifts worth it if it means that I'm so fatigued and tired from the rest of my block that the lifts aren't as good? And so it's like, do I really need deadlifts? Am I a power lifter or am I just doing deadlifts? And so we can sort of play around with that and look at and go, yeah, you got good lifts on the deadlift, but by the end of your session, you sort of dropped off and it sort of took you a little bit longer. So that takes away from study time. That takes away from eating food.
Yeah, so it affects other aspects of your life by being fatigued. Right?
Exactly. And so it's like, all right, is that fatigue worth the ratio of pain and volume? It's like, I could probably do other exercises.
So then with your injury, would you say that you're on the higher end or the higher volume end of training versus that lower volume, higher intensity, purely because you can't, or like you have to stage your tolerance because of your lower back and, you know, your knee and stuff? Or would you always the type to train with a higher volume or a lower volume? Like,
Um, it depends. It depends sort of what phase we're going through. I do like training higher volume, but at the same time, I'm just a classic like bodybuilder lifter. I love lifting some heavy shit. There's some days, like some periods, Dol will just kick me in the ass and put in a heavy deadlift block just so I remember what it feels like to hurt and not want that for another 6 to 12 months. And I'll get some joy out of it. Like my peak, I think this time last year when we finally got back into the gyms was a 240 deadlift for like 4x2. So not horrible for a guy who doesn't powerlift, and so I knew the strength is there. I can pull when I need to, but it's like, is it necessary, or would I benefit from getting higher volume out of my sessions and less pain? So it's a majority of the time I'd say Dol figures out the ratio and finds where that coverable volume is. Just work in that radius, and that sort of gets me the fun, because like it would be for you. It's fun for me. It's fun to be in there. I don't like to get in and out and pump out a fucking 30-minute session. I like to, I like to feel the weights. I like to feel the room. I like to train and just be in that environment. So it's my source of fun. It's my source of de-stress, my source to switch off. And so, it's sometimes it can be high volume. Rarely does he drop it down to just heavy sets, minimal load, minimal volume. But at the same time, it's not like I'm lifting chump weights either.
Of course. Yeah, no, like I said, it's just sort of a happy medium. I know that, like we all know that, in terms of the science and, the two opposite ends of the spectrum, like, high volume, lower intensities for muscle growth. And then you got higher intensities, low volume. In saying that though, I mean, if you have a higher intensity, the volume shouldn't be overly low considering you're lifting way more weight, but whatever. I'm just saying which one you prefer in terms of, or which ones I guess you could do based on your injury, because obviously injury does play a part in what you're able to do, right? So, if you didn't have your back injury, would you rather lift, closer to failure with, I guess, less working sets versus, I guess at sub max or, more reps away from failure, but with more sets?
I think I'd enjoy, the odd block of it. I think, like there's always those fun days where you just want to go and smash some fucking weight, right? Like you just want to go in and kill some weight and have some fun with it. So I would definitely say that's a way I would like to every now and then. But it's it is what it is. Back's what it is, and we've got this far with it. So I mean, there's a method to the madness, and there's a result that's come from it at least. Whether everyone else thinks it's a result or not, I don't know. I'm not pro yet, so it's eliciting response that we want. So. It's doing its job. You can't argue it, right? Exactly. I enjoy it. It's working. Dolt's got the numbers there. The results are coming. So, I mean, give or take 3 or 4 more years, who knows if it's still going to work that way. I mean, we'll have to mix it up. But for now, it's fun and it's doing its job. Totally fair, man. So, what show are you prepping for before we move on to your little business venture? So we are aiming for season 8 next year. Yes. I really want to. So that'll be February, March. For the IFBB. I want to, however, push a little bit differently than say I think other competitors might do it. I want to try a few shows. One of the things I find that sucks in Australia is we're limited in our state shows to the national show, whereas like in the States, 52 states, 360 million people, how many shows they run every year. And so they get that more experience, I guess, being in that more depleted state for longer and really push their physiques to that drier, leaner look before they sort of go to their off season. So I kind of want to try at least 2 or 3 state shows and then nationals and see how we go. So then it might be Queensland. I want to try a travel show. So I want to try go the other side of the country and hit WA. I've never been to Perth before, so I want to try a show over there. Old Alan Mao, we spoke last time I was going to compete over there, and he said stop by, so be able to go over there and say good day, catch up with him, and then bloke. Love Alan, old Mao. And then from there, I've got family in New South Wales, so probably go down there, see them, invite them to the show and do that one, and then maybe do, if nationals is in Melbourne, depending on what's going on with COVID in the world. Of course, I'll probably say I'll do nationals in the Melbourne show as well. So we're looking about 3 or 4 different shows, hopefully. Yeah, nice. It'd be interesting what state you're in between show to shows and how you're living and how your body's holding up. I've already planned with Dalt. Like that's right before uni starts, so I don't have to worry about trying to study or anything. It's just like focus on the shows. Yep. All right, let's move into your little business venture, Matter Athletica. How did that come about? And that's an interesting one. So I'm not going to disrespect anyone that did anything they needed to do to get through COVID by any means. I'm just not someone who can sit still. I mean, in this podcast alone, I probably fidgeted about 40,000 different times, but just in general, I'm not someone who can waste. I say waste. It comes across like very arrogant or smug, but I'm not someone who can miss up opportunity and pass time. I think when you experience something like a close family member passing, or even potentially contemplating your own suicide, things like that, time becomes very short, and you start to realize how quickly things go and how limited we are. And for me, I was like, what am I waiting for? Like, I've done the normal life, I've done the trade life, I've done that sort of thing, and that wasn't for me. Injuries came, that sort of stuff. So I had this idea of where I wanted to go with psychology. And obviously the common thing is you wait till you get to your degree, graduate, start your work and get some work experience. And I don't know, like, to me, it wasn't enough. It was too slow. Like, because I'm working full time, I've got to study, pull part-time, between part-time and full-time. So it's going to take years to get to the end result. And my managing director and I were speaking about it, and we ended up getting to this idea that, like, why not get the basis of it ready now? Why not do the skeleton, the outline, and work on the module in between? And that's where we got to the point where I had some ideas, I had some thoughts around talking to people. I still remember sitting on the balcony at our old apartment. I messaged you and I messaged a few other athletes, and I was like, has anyone ever spoke to you about this? I want to talk about this. Like, if we had this chat, how would you feel about that? And the first one was on my personal Instagram, and actually my followers like dropped like crazy, went down, and people just didn't give a shit. And I'm like, that was where I really started to phase out my old life and start living towards everything I want to do now. Like, it was a bit more around that educational part, and like I was less, I guess, repressed in thinking that way and how I am, and became more open to like, this is what I want to do. So I don't care if people unfollow me or leave. But then in that meantime, we're like, well, if everyone in my personal doesn't really give a shit and that sort of thing, it's not really where they want to see it, it's the perfect opportunity to start something else. So COVID's on, we're all bored, locked down, got nothing going on. I've still got study in gyms. We'll train on the balcony. And so for me, it was like, all right, well, what can I do then to get something going? And it started off with just Instagram. It started off with first post, first few interviews. Spoke to people on there. The interviews are still on the page now. I'm looking at doing the next round, but on podcast as opposed to on the Instagram. So, that was step one, I guess, kind of thing, is like, get people seeing it, get people familiar with the logo and the brand and the name, and just start expressing what the idea is and sort of what the concept behind it was. Because at the moment it just looks like free information and free data and free shared stuff, which is cool. That's great. That's what I want. I'm not at the point where I'm selling anything yet or producing anything. So if I can give you free information, get it while it's there. But yeah, from COVID, it stemmed further and further into what I wanted to be, and it's just kept unfolding. Like, I never thought like a year later there'd be apparel on the line, there'd be, books coming out, there'd be a website, there'd be blogs and articles and journals that people have read and that sort of thing, which is fucking cool. It's literally been 12 months. And yeah, it just literally stemmed from me being on the balcony one day, being like, I'm bored of waiting and bored of, like, I can't sit still. I can't wait another 3 to 6 years to get to the point where I'm actually executing. And I just thought, well, while I'm at NW, while I'm at uni, I can build the template and the structure and the skeleton and the ideas. And, I've got, if we're not going to call the visual, I've got a diary, an ideas diary, like the Matter Athletica diary I've got that, it's got concepts and ideas I want to expand on as I go along. Like, I don't really have the articulation, the language yet to really express what I'm trying to think about. So I've got ideas I want to expand on later that might make it easier to draw to or conclude from down the track. So yeah, it's been bit by bit, just expanding it, expressing it, getting ideas out there, associating with people, trying to get like-minded people to talk to me about it.
I guess we probably should have started with this question first and foremost. What is Matter Athletica? Considering I already know what it is. I know what it is, but if we're going to have people listen to this, which let's hope they do, how about you explain what Matter Athletica is, and then they'll understand exactly what you said.
To go in a roundabout way back to what it is.
Backward like a Master Yoda over here, so that's what we do.
on the Elite Strength podcast, we work backwards.
Exactly right. We just talk shit and see what happens. No. So what is Matter Athletica, I guess, if you were to sort of summarize what it is and what it's going to be, I guess?
So Matter Athletica is, to me, and what we're sort of expressing it to be, is this idea that potential is a perspective and a perception limited by how we view the world, and that there's a data and a science to understanding why great people do great things, but we, for some reason, don't like to see it. So my perception is my values and the idea of trying to create a matter is that we don't have to sit in a world where those people are crazy and extreme and out there and unrealistic. It's more so, how do we learn from them? Whilst you might not want to be Michael Jordan, you might not want to be Andrew Johns or Michael Phelps or Usain Bolt, you might want to be the world's best painter, the world's best singer, the number one builder, the number one fucking chippy, whatever it is you want to be. But we get sort of caught up in this idea that average is good enough and you've got to just accept what you have, and that's, don't be greedy, and that's fine. To me, that's ridiculous. That's like the number ones never did that. They didn't just go, well, 2 sessions a week is good enough, 3 sessions a week is good enough, just having a job is good enough. It was, how do I continually get better and improve past my limits? And
it was never good enough.
Yeah, it was never good enough. and that's the sentiment, and the I guess the philosophy behind it is that one of my favorite philosophers, I guess psychologists, is a man called Nietzsche, and he wrote of one of his last pieces of work before he passed away, I believe. Thus spoke Zarathustra, and it's this idea around a guy he calls the Uberman or the Superman, and gets mixed up in a lot of early 20th century war history, so we won't go down that route. But basically, it was the idea that there was a superior race to humans, this evolution that was meant to take over. And the way I've interpreted it kind of is that each person should live a life in attempt to be the Uberman and reach the Superman status. But the fact is, we're never going to. Each person is going to live a life of fulfillment, of potential, breaking past limitations, and living a forthright life in a way that projects each person after them to the next stage. And each generation, that allows us to get to a point where we're further and further along, and we're getting past that stagnant, boring sort of place we are now. And I think we're kind of in that stagnant place that isn't really doing anything. And so for me, it's like every time we see these crazy people, these extremes, or these successful people, everyone like dismisses them or brushes them aside, that's out there. You can't do that. We can't do that. My thought is, why the fuck not? Like, why can't we learn from that? Why can't we find from them? Sure, if we look at the average under the bell curve, they're outliers. But if we look amongst them, what does the average tell us? What are the things about them we can learn and take from and go, all right, that's actually pretty normal for them. That's pretty normal behavior. And then apply that to ourselves. And so in the worst case scenario, in my head, I see Matter Athletica raising the bar on human potential. Not so much in a way that everyone has to live a life I live, because I'm very different. I'm unique to a lot of people. I know that. Everyone probably fucking knows that by now. But if we can get to people that they believe they can do more and have a greater potential than they do, and enable that potential, then human existence just raises up a bar, and we start living a better life, better quality. We start producing better things. We start acting better ways. It evolves us as a species further. And so it might sound crazy to people to have that sort of goal, but I mean, why not? Like, it literally comes down to a mindset of, well, why am I limited to what I'm doing? Why can't I do more?
Yeah, I like it. So then, what does Matter Athletica offer in terms of its branding, in terms of services, or what's it looking to, I guess, once it's a bit more down the track or down the road, we'll say?
Yeah, so at the moment, what I'm offering is just a peace of mind, like a piece of my mind. Like, it's just, at the moment, it's literally free information, free data, free, I guess, exploring the head of someone who's not normal, and sort of seeing the world from my perspective, and sort of what data I found and what I've seen, experienced, lived, for people I've talked to, and that's where it's at now. Is like trying to get that brand awareness out there, just trying to get people exposed to the idea that they can want more, they can have other things, they can want to be successful. They don't have to just be happy with the mundane. I resent the idea the way we dismiss people who want more or want success as like selfish or arrogant or crazy or whatever. And I'm like, nah, like you can have it, you can do it. The thing is, you've got to make certain sacrifices. You've got to give certain things up. You've got to be willing to do these things. And so if you are, great, more power to you. I encourage it. And that's sort of what it's at now. We're looking at apparel. That's going to be just, rather than for profit for me, it's ways to go back into the business that I can better expand things and get more equipment and more people involved and afford some ways of getting further information out there. But the long term I want to offer is more so mentoring, more so like psychological coaching, performance coaching, running lectures and webinars and seminars that allow people to understand these mentalities and these mindsets and stuff that, yes, it's going to take me years of university to learn, but I can help you foster it in, a month, a matter of months, a matter of weeks. No different to you going to a coach for a physiological reason. But rather than just being like a bodybuilding program, we're going to shift how you perceive yourself, the world, what you think is capable and potential and what you can actually do. And then also, take those mentorship programs and take those webinars and then work with one-on-ones, work with athletes, work with CEOs, business owners, people that are already thinking crazy. Like, all right, if you think this way, how can we fine tune it? How can we use those tools as techniques? Like, we've had some conversations. I've worked with you a little bit on just fine tuning some things that overcome certain things. I've worked with other people already, not in a sense now that I'm selling anything. I'm not curing anyone. I'm not trying to do anything like that. It's just more so
you're helping.
Exactly. How can I help now to get some people to try see things a little bit differently, and hopefully that elicits a result that they weren't expecting.
We offer things like short courses and stuff like that as well, online courses, later down the track, whether it be like a 6, 8, 10, 12, 6-month, 12-month course or whatever it is, that a lot of people are sort of starting to do. Like, I think they're calling them mentorship courses or whatever it is, but I just call them short courses.
Yeah.
That sort of stuff, or is it just more so you're going to look at like webinars and sort of one-off type stuff?
No, I think that'll definitely be a thing that comes about for sure. It's a strange, complex process getting into someone's head, and anyone sort of like, I see these people at the moment calling themselves like mindset coaches and stuff like that with literally zero education in philosophy, psychology, behavioral science, neural understanding, cognition, nothing. And so it's a deep and complex web of interaction and circuitry in the brain that when I can get to a point of sharing that, I can't give it to you in a week. I can't give it to you in 2 visits. Like, it's going to be, I might do a class as a cheaper courses that we've discussed, 5, 10 people, get in and see the webinars, talk to some people. I want to go the old school way as well and then host actual lectures. I want to get into, an auditorium and host, 100, 200,000 people and use that to express philosophies and ideas and sort of entwine the two as like, philosophy and performance don't have to be separate. They in fact should be together. The psychosomatic relationship needs to be talked about. It's not just like mind, brain, it's mind and brain. Mind and body. Yep. And, that's another route I want to go as well. Have the volume impact and then take the people who actually want to endorse the program to a one-on-one level, where we do more direct work and actually talk about skills and mental cues and mental triggers and stuff that we can work on for them to excel.
Sounds good. Now, to finish up, because we have been running close to an hour, I think it's been about 50 minutes, so we won't obviously take too long. Otherwise, we'd be here for 5 hours. Let's be real. The three, call them influencers, we could say, on Instagram, social media, that have sort of influenced you to sort of do this sort of stuff, just so that if anyone actually does listen, it's like, oh, I like this stuff. Who is it that you follow or that you like to listen to, watch, read? In terms of social media, since we are in the 21st century and everyone seems to use Instagram for life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I guess in a more recent context, it would have to be Jordan Peterson, obviously. Mm-hmm. Tim Grover. Anyone who hasn't seen The Last Dance yet might not know of him, but he was kind of the I want to say the founder of mindset coaching for direct athletes. The way he interacted with Jordan, Kobe, Kevin Durant, Charles Barkley, all these guys. He even worked with Phil Heath at the last Olympia. So his work is very similar to what I replicate. And probably Goggins, like mostly in the book. Like him as a person, insane human being. But the way he expresses it through his book, You Can't Hurt Me, it's a way that to actually psych into someone's head who thinks very, very similar to me, or perhaps I think similar to him. Those three people probably influenced my appreciation, understanding around elite performance, psychology, responsibility, personal development, and the kind of, I guess, be like a molded impact of the three that I think would be an outcome, I guess, of Matter Athletica that I'd be happy with.
Cool. And then I'll give you, I guess, one or two more questions. Top three or favorite three bodybuilders that you follow that people may be interested in following, not so much, I guess, for their physique. What about content that some post every now and then? You got anybody in your mind?
See, I love Bumstead because he is that approachable personality. Like you don't get the typical in the dungeon kind of mindset vibe with him. I love his physique. His physique is phenomenal, but his attitude to life and training and posing and competing as a whole is second to none. It's awesome. He's so happy doing it that it's not like a chore. It's never a hassle. It's never, like, I'm sure there is days it is a hassle, but you watch his day in the life videos and his prep road to Olympias and things like that. And he's just having fun with it. And that's where I think the greatest success comes from in bodybuilding is when you're fucking having fun. Another guy that I really like who's probably been missed by a few people, that he's not quite dominant as what he could be yet, is Regan Grimes. He has that natural structure to me that's a mixture of aesthetically pleasing but also mass. Like, you know, I may never get to Olympia stage, but if I had the physical structure of Grimey, I'd be wrapped. Like that would be something else. So that's definitely someone else that I'm like, I really enjoy following. Just again, he's just someone who has fun training, enjoys doing it. Doesn't really talk shit or slur anyone or rip on anyone else to sort of be himself. He just does him, has fun, and enjoys training. Who else?
The tricky one.
There's so many. God, who are you thinking?
Oh, me. One of my favorites in terms of content posted, especially for educational purposes, John Jewett. I love John Jewett's stuff, man.
Yes, I follow. Yeah, 100%.
He's genuinely a very intellectual person. So, like a lot of the content that he puts out, it's actually really, really good. Not just for.
I think he's been missing. Yeah, it's like it's a hard thing to be. Yeah, it's a hard thing to be. Yeah, exactly. It's a hard thing these days for some reason to be a bodybuilder and intellectual, and it's like the two don't have to be mutually exclusive. So
yeah, well, a lot of people I think they think bodybuilder just must be stupid, but then you see some of these guys, it's quite what's the word I'm looking for? Measured what they do.
For sure.
To their food, supplementation, training, and just because they have a coach doesn't mean that they don't know something about it, especially if they've been doing it for a while. And you got someone like John Jewett who's actually qualified, degree qualified. So it's just pretty cool to see. I like the content and the new way that these guys are going about releasing content on social media. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Matty Jensen, similar.
Yeah, exactly right.
Similar thing. Just it's creating a new age, I think, I hope, of intellectual trainers.
Yeah.
Not just anecdotal bro trainers.
Yeah, understanding less is more.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, thank you, Big Boy Ben, for the chat, as always. I'm sure we will do many more of these, either on yours or on mine, or if we end up doing our own one together, we'll just talk shit for 2 hours and band. That'd be fun.
It's inevitable, but yeah, it'll be fun while it lasts.
It'll last 3 minutes, and then...
Karen will find it. Unfollow.
But thank you, good sir, for coming on and explaining yourself and what Matter Athletica is. Where can people find you on social media?
So personally, it's probably where I'm going to have the most impact at the moment is just Ben Mayfield-Smith. That's where I've got a lot of my training and psychology and stuff going, but generally going to start leaning towards trying to get people over to the Matter Athletica page. So it's literally as the name sounds, Matter Athletica. We should be the first one that comes up. The website's on Google now. The old marketing directors optimized the SEO pretty well, so it's the first search you'll find on Google, which is pretty cool. And yeah, so there's going to be hopefully a podcast coming out soon, I think, and the website's up and running fully there. So whatever I've got up there to read and listen to, recommended books, some apparel will be there soon, hopefully. But yeah, so for that's probably the best two places to find me.
Perfect, man. Thank you for that, and thanks for the chat, my dude. And I'm sure we'll hear from you soon.
No worries, brother. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you.